Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about something a little bit different. Let's go ahead and talk about clip. So the previous spatial analysis tool, Buffer, dealt with only one single feature class, right? With clip, what we're starting to do is we're starting to deal with multiple feature classes. And what clip is going to do is clip is going to take and is going to remove or cut out, right, the geometry of one feature based on the geometry of another. You'll often hear clip referred to as cookie cutter. Right, and that's because it functions in much the same way that a cookie cutter works when you're making Christmas cookies or Easter cookies or any type of cookie, right? That if you have some input, which I'll draw here in white, is their input feature, right? And then we have some other feature, which I'm going to draw in red here, right? This is our clip feature. Right? If we run the clip spatial analysis tool, what will end up happening, right, is that the clip spatial analysis tool is going to subset or clip the geometry of the input feature based on the geometry of the clip feature, right? So it's going to clip the geometry of the input feature right to match the geometry of the clip feature. So the clip tool takes the input feature and clips it to the geometry of the clip feature. Again, you can think of this like if you're baking Christmas cookies, you push the cookie stamp into the cookie dough, and then what you get back is just the dough that was inside of the clip feature. So if we were to do this, right, the end result, right, would be something that looks like that. So let's look at how that looks with something that's drawn a little more to scale. Right, so in this case, we have the green here is our input features. Right, the purple with the dashed line, right, is our clip feature. Right, and so when we run clip, what we end up with, right, is the input feature, right, represented again by the green, in this case, being represented only where it was overlapped by the clip feature, right? So it clipped the geometry of the input feature to the geometry of the clip feature. Again, let me say that again, right? Clip takes the input feature and clips it to the geometry of the clip feature. Again, think of it like a cookie cutter. You push the cookie cutter into the cookie dough. What you have left over from that, right, is the result of the clip. So let's look at a more realistic example of when you might want to use clip, or another example. All right, so let's say that you have these two features here. We have the input feature here, right? Maybe this is a piece of a property boundary, right? And then we have our clip feature, here, right? And we want to ask ourselves, right, what is the result? Of a clip. Now, I know this isn't actually a review question, but just take a second and see if you can think through what would happen if we were to run a clip on these two data sets, given this as the input and this as the clip feature. Okay, so what would happen ultimately, right, is that we would end up with the input feature being clipped at the geometry of the clipping feature. So it would cut along here, it'd cut along here, right? And then what would happen is, right, the rest of the geometry is already inside of the clipping feature. So there's nothing to clip, right? It's already smaller than the clipping feature. Right? Again, think about this if you're making a cookie with the cookie cutter, if you were to cut along the edge, right? What you would end up with is you'd end up with everything in the cookie cutter being cut, and then whatever is left over on the edge would just be left the way that it was. Right? And so if we run this, what we would end up with is this yellow area here, and just draw into scale, right? It would look something like that.